Welcome to the Worshipped Woman podcast. I am your host, kellykristin. I am a life and relationship coach, deep healing facilitator, and subconscious change expert. On this podcast, we will dive deep into personal growth, transformation, and relationships, releasing patterns of toxicity, codependency, and people-pleasing as we explore what it means to be the worshipped woman. If you are ready to heal, embody your worth, and raise your standards in life and love, you are in the right place. I am so happy to have you here. Now, let's get started. Hello, sisters. Welcome back to another episode of the Worshipped Woman podcast. I am so very happy that you are here and that you are hanging out with me today. And I want to talk about something that I think is really, really important. And I hope that you can maybe shift a perspective today, that maybe you can allow the words that I'm going to say to you to really land and to really help you to see things in a new way. Now, we've had a lot of conversations on this podcast, certainly in my programs, about worthiness and what it means to be worthy and how you can feel worthy and all of these things. And I really want to talk about worthiness when it comes to relationships and the, I guess, sort of societal expectation or the societal lens that we can put on relationships, where we have this idea that being in a relationship makes you more worthy than if you weren't in a relationship, and that the end of a relationship is somehow a failure, because those things are 100% false. Being in a relationship does not make you more worthy than you would already be on your own. And the ending of a relationship, for any reason, whether that was a horribly toxic relationship or just because it wasn't the right thing for you, the ending of a relationship does not make you a failure. And it certainly doesn't mean that anything is wrong with you, right? And I really want you to get this, because I believe that our relationships here on earth are really the greatest vessels for our own growth. The greatest way that we can know ourselves is by really witnessing ourselves when we are with others, and our intimate relationships are the place where we are going to play out the deepest wounds that we have. They're going to play out the patterns, right? It's the place where when you're really stressed out and when you have a lot going on, you're going to see how you show up versus maybe like the pretty picture that you would paint to the outside world, right? When our intimate relationships, you can't really hide. Okay, this is the place, this is the opportunity for you, for everybody to be able to do the deepest work. And I think that for a long time in our society, we have valued relationships based on the length of time that we were in them, right? Like that if people just stayed together, that was somehow a good thing. And I really want you to think about the timeline, and the timeline of even being able to get a divorce. You know, I know in the United States, and I don't know what it is like in them, still certain in other countries in the world, it's still not even anywhere near as easy as it is to get a divorce in the as it is in the United States. But it wasn't until the late 80s where a woman could say, I need to, divorce this person because he doesn't treat me well, because he hurts me, because he abuses me, right? Like this was literally not until the late 80s that women were able to leave abusive relationships without having to go to court and prove a case as to why you were getting a divorce, or as to why, like, that this wasn't a safe place for you to be. And that stopped a lot of people from leaving relationships because you didn't want to go through the court process. One, like if you had the money to do that or not. Two, the level of maybe embarrassment that you might have felt going through that. It was just a totally different time. So as a result of that, and you think about that, people like your grandparents didn't really have a choice or an option of not staying with that person. It was a lot more difficult. And then that carried over into your parents. And then here you are. And now we live in a time where it's a lot more free to leave relationships, obviously. And that happens all the time. The divorce rate is very, very high. But we also have this weird stigma around breaking up, right? And I hear this a lot where women, obviously, because I work with women mostly, so I'm talking to women, where we have this sort of shame that we feel when a relationship ends, right? Like, I'm a failure. There's something wrong with me. Why couldn't we just make this work? And start telling yourself these stories that are just based off of a societal construct that really has nothing to do with anything. Because the truth is that ending a relationship is not a failure, because what is a successful relationship then? If ending a relationship is failure, then you're telling me then just merely staying together with somebody and staying in a relationship makes it a success? Because I have certainly witnessed some relationships that, gosh, you think, why are they still together, right? That is not a good relationship. That is not a happy scenario. That is not a healthy scenario. So you're telling me that that relationship is more successful than ending a relationship that is harmful or ending a relationship that isn't the right thing for you? I want you to see that that is a completely made up thing. It's a made up thing. And if you were in that place where you're starting to feel like a failure, or you're starting to feel like, oh, I'm just not good at relationships, or whatever it is, whatever the story is, I really want you to start questioning a little bit deeper of well, where is that story coming from? Why am I telling myself this? Is this the absolute truth? Start questioning yourself if you find yourself in this kind of scenario where you're thinking that by your relationship ending, that it is somehow a failure, or that you are somehow not worthy because a relationship has ended, right? Because here's the thing, and here's where self-worth is going to tie in. Oftentimes, when we have low self-worth and we are looking for things outside of ourselves to make us feel worthy, to make us feel like I'm valuable, I'm good enough, right? Because that's really what self-worth is knowing you're valuable, you're good enough. You don't have to prove that. That's just the truth. But when we are living in a place where we don't hold that belief, right? We don't have that belief. We don't have that inner knowing that that's the truth, and we don't embody that inner knowing. And we show up in our lives in a way where we need outside things to validate our worth constantly, and we need other people to validate our worth, well, that's where you're going to fall into the trap of thinking that a relationship makes you worthy. So that by you being in a relationship, that makes you valuable and that makes you good enough. And that's where we can get trapped into being in relationship with somebody who actually doesn't really value us and doesn't really make us feel good enough, because we are actually in a place where we're trying to prove that and prove that and prove that. And we're going to show up in our lives by our beliefs. So actually what ends up happening is, if I believe I'm not good enough or I'm not valuable, then I'm actually going to want to seek out in my life, well, not want to, I just am going to, because this is how your subconscious works. I'm going to seek out relationships and scenarios that prove to me my beliefs already, even though I'm going to consciously say, I want a relationship where I feel valuable and I feel worthy and I feel all of these things. What you're actually going to seek out, where you're actually going to feel comfortable and where you're actually going to feel love, is in the relationship that somehow gets you the messaging or makes you feel like you're not really that valuable, you're not really that good enough. But you're going to sit there and you're going to try to prove it over and over and over again. And this is why it is so important to work down at the root cause, right? The root cause, which is your beliefs, which is what you tell yourself about yourself, which is your own worthiness has to come from you. It has to come from you, because if you don't have your own worthiness, if you don't feel good enough on your own, if you don't value yourself enough on your own, you're going to continue to seek partnerships that validate the not worthiness, and you're going to continue to not only just in those kind of intimate relationships, but this is also what sets us up in the trap of life where I constantly feel like I have to get things all of the time. The life that I feel like I have to have this car, or I have to have these clothes, or I have to look this certain way, or I have to do this, or I have to do that, right? Because when we're constantly in that place and we're looking to other people to validate our worth, it's like we're always chasing versus being grounded in the knowing of the truth of your own self-worth. And that is such a big difference. Do you really understand that, right? Because the truth is that you don't need anything. And our society is set up in a way where, especially as women, we're sold so many things based off of the selling. Somehow the marketing to us tells us like we're not good enough. We have to have this thing to make us better, or we can be more perfect this way, or we can be more perfect that way, or we can be this, or we can be that. And this is the trap that the patriarchal structure of our society and how we view women in this society overall has led us into. And it goes hand in hand with our relationships, right? Because we need something to make us better. We need something to be better. We need something to have this. And there's just all of these stories there about worthiness. And what I want you to take away from this right now is that the only person that can determine your worth, your value, if you're good enough, is you. That's it. It is 100% you, and it has to come from you, because if you cannot get it to come from you, you are going to consistently have this feeling of like, I've got to get more, I've got to have more, I've got to do this, or I've got to get this person that doesn't want me, I got to get him to choose me, I got to get him to want to be with me, I got to get him to change his mind, I got to get him to do all of these things because then I'll feel okay. But the truth is that even if you got that, right? Even if you got what you say you wanted, even if you were with somebody who said, you know what, I love you, you're good enough, you're valuable to me, you're all of these things, but you didn't believe that yourself, you would sabotage it. You would start coming up with all of the reasons why that couldn't possibly be true because you don't believe it yourself. Self-belief has to be number one. This has to be number one. This is why I say constantly all of the time, it's not important what the other people are doing or what the other people are thinking or all of these things about why this person is this way or why this person is that way. It doesn't fucking matter. And it doesn't matter because what matters is you. What matters is your life. What matters is how much belief do you have in yourself? How worthy do you believe you are? How valuable do you believe you are? And if you're showing up in your life in ways that doesn't reflect somebody who believes they are valuable or worthy, this is where we have to do the work. This is where we have to shift. This is where we have to change. Because the truth is that you are always worthy. You are already valuable. You are unique. You're wonderful. You're beautiful. And being in a relationship, not being in a relationship, doesn't change that. It doesn't change that at all. And we have to stop telling ourselves these stories that, oh, I was a failure, or that there's something wrong with me because I've had a lot of relationships that didn't work out. Great. Those are the best lessons of your life. But the choice is to either take it as a lesson and to grow from it, or to take it as, here it goes again, this happened again, there must be something wrong with me. There must be something wrong with me. I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable. I'm not all of these things, whatever the story is. So there's the choice point. The choice point is to go down the rabbit hole of self-pity and self-shaming. Or the choice point is to say, what is this here to teach me? What is this here to show me? How can I shift this? How can I change this? If you've been in a cycle of relationships that, haven't been great, okay, that doesn't make you a failure. Relationships are not success failure. That's not even a thing. It is a thing. It's a totally made up thing though. It's completely made up. Relationships are not about success or failure. They're experiences. They're vessels for our growth to grow, to evolve. And if you think about relationships like that it's not a success or a failure, it just is, well, maybe you can start asking, What is this here to teach me? How can I grow from this? How can I evolve from this? How can I be better the next time? How can I do something differently? How can I show up differently? How can I open my heart in a different way? How can I pick better? How can I choose better? How can I love more deeply in a more intimate way where I can be myself versus walking on eggshells, versus trying to placate the other person to convince myself that this is an okay place to be, when in reality, I'm not living my life for myself. I'm not living my life to the fullest. I'm not expressing all the love that I have within me. How can I show up in a way where I don't try to control, but I try to accept? How can I show up in a way of acceptance of myself? Do you see the difference in the questions that you get to ask yourself when you focus on yourself and your growth versus why am I a failure? Why is this happening? Why are my relationships like this? Why does nobody want to be with me? Why this or why that? Do you see the difference in the questions? And what happens if you actually answer those questions? If you stop this, pause this, go back, answer those questions that I just asked you. And you start really considering that, and you start looking at this and saying, this is the place for me to grow. This is a place for me to change. This is a place for me to shift. The truth is, you guys, nobody has life figured out. Nobody does. I mean, nobody knows what they're doing. I mean, really, and certainly not in relationships. Relationships are difficult. They're hard. They're complex. There's so many layers, even good ones, healthy ones, right? Even healthy relationships, there's layers, there's complexities, there's wounds that show up, there's presence that needs to be had, there's difficult conversations. There's so many things. Relationships are not easy, and they're also not success failure. They're growth. They're vehicles for your growth. And so much beautiful lessons can come out of them. You're not a failure. There's nothing wrong with you. And you might have some growing to do. And what a beautiful opportunity that you get to live right now in this time when we have so many brilliant tools available to us, so many amazing teachers here to help us along the way. So much opportunity for you to step into a new way of being, so much opportunity for you to take control of your life and empower yourself to get the kind of love that you want. Because maybe those failed relationships, and I'm saying that on purpose, right? Maybe those are relationships that didn't work out, were really just your greatest teachers for you to come home to yourself, for you to be able to love yourself completely, for you to be able to see yourself in a new way, accept yourself in a new way, and then show up and get the love that you actually deserve. But you needed all that stuff, right? Like you need all the stuff that you've been through in your life to be who you are. And when you actually come to the place that you like who you are because of all that stuff, that's magic, that's unstoppable. And that's where I want you to be. Is being in that place for myself changed my fucking life. Being in the place where I could look back and go, wow, everything that I've been through makes sense. And I'm so happy that I went through it all because I wouldn't be who I am today without it. And I love who I am today. And I want you to feel that way. And it's totally possible for you. I know this because it was possible for me. I know this because I help women do this. And there's so much more life for you than having to run around thinking that you got to prove to somebody else that you're worthy. When you know your worth and when you step into that, whew, child, whole new life is available to you. So if you are a woman that really wants to say goodbye to the toxic relationships for good, you want to work on your deep wounds that have shown up in your relationships and you want to release them, you want to shift them, you want to change them, Heal, Rise, Thrive might just be the right thing for you. This is my group program for women only that want to change these relational patterns. You want to come to know yourself, accept yourself, love yourself, and finally feel peace within yourself so that you can get the love that you really want. This is about shifting on a subconscious level, the deep beliefs that we hold. It's about shifting on a nervous system level. It's about expanding the capacity for you to hold more, to be more available to life and to be more available to love and to really, really love and accept yourself fully. If that sounds like something you want, I'm going to put the link in the show notes for you. You and I can have a conversation about it. We are starting next week when this podcast comes out. So if you're listening to it when it comes out, we are going to be starting next week. And I'm so, so excited for the women already in it. I'm excited for the women that are going to join, because this is truly the most life-changing program. It's not like anything else that you've ever experienced before. If this is speaking to you, go ahead, check out the link in the show notes. If you can't find it for some reason, just catch me on Instagram. You can DM me. I am at Miss MS kellykristin. And do me a favor, if you liked the episode that you heard today, you can also screenshot, tag me on Instagram, let me know you're listening, or you can always send it to another sister that needs to hear this message. I love you guys so much, and I'll talk to you soon.